Well, the basics of tying a fly, obviously, did you see me put on this thread base here? So basically you just wrap that thread on. You put a thread base down, okay? About the simplest fly to tie is probably a woolly bugger, okay? And once you tie a woolly bugger, you can tie this fly. You just add a whole bunch of garbage in on top of it. So, for pike flies, I like to use durable materials, so a lot of synthetics. This stuff is called kinky fiber or jungle hair or pseudo hair. Yeah, no, not pseudo hair. Pseudo hair. Super hair. Yeah, super hair. So grab a pinch out of the hank. And I just take it, I double it over my thread. And then as I wrap it, I just let it slide onto the shank. And that gives me durability in the length. We're going to add some hackles in here for a little bit of beauty, but hackles aren't as durable as I'd like for e-socks. So,
what kind of thread do you use?
This is Danville's 140 denier.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
And I actually throw a couple parachute wraps on that just to keep it standing up so it doesn't foul around the hook. That's kind of the structure of the tail of the fly. If you can you see how I parachuted that up a little bit? Get some flash here. Then I'm going to add some rainbow flashing on this one. Again, just a small pinch from the hank. What's that? No, I'm good. I've got plenty of light here. And then remember, as you're doing these small pinches, remember, because the way I wrap it in, it's going to be double as thick once you tie it in. So again, I just double it over the thread, and I don't double it evenly. It gives it a little bit of a taper, natural taper when you slide it down and tie it on top of the shank there. And then here's my secret weapon. This is my favorite. A lot of people laugh at it. I don't know if you can see that in there. Does anybody know what that is? Close. That's South Ogden Junior High pom-pom. South Ogden Junior High Spartans, to be exact. I do have permission to use this, so.
You take that off a cheerleader?
I did. Oh no, we got to do a hackle. I got a little bit excited about the pom-pom. I'm a little bit ahead of myself. We're going to throw some hackles in there.
He's got a little threshold.
She was 18, right?
Well, by the time I got him from her, she was about 32. So it was a lengthy courtship, just for a pom-pom.
You feel, what was that, 6 minutes or what?
So just some grizzly hackle here. And the good thing about tying big e-socks flies is you get to use all those hackles that you can never get to use for your dry flies. The fibers are so long, you'd have to be tying a size 4 dry fly. And then when I tie in my hackles, a lot of people tie in praying. So when I say praying, they're in like this. I actually like to tie mine splayed. I feel like it gives the bug a little bit more motion when you're not imparting motion with a strip or whatnot. Typically, most fish, just about all fish, have a darker back than they do belly, and that's to avoid predation from below. So I try to put a little darker feathers on top. So there you see my hackles are about the same length as that super hair on the back there. So when that gets bit onto and the fish doesn't get the hook, my hackles are still protected because this takes the stress of the bite. So it's a size 4, or 4/0, excuse me.
4/0.
Yes, 4/0. Then from there, a little more flash. And then this, I don't know what they call this in the fly shop, but in the craft store they call it, I think, sparkle eyelash. You can get like 300 yards of it for like $2, which is way too much. Not price, the amount, 300 yards. You'll never use 300 yards. And then as I wrap this, I'm combing all these fibers back with my fingers not to trap them in the next wrap. We just have some bucktail here. I'm going to do white. Grab a generous pinch. And then this is Bob Popovich's hollow fly method. So typically you tie it in this way, but I'm going to flip it around this way. And the way I like to tie it in is I lay it on top. I do 1, 2, 3 loose wraps, and then I've captured it, and then I can start to manipulate. And as I tighten down on those loose wraps, it's going to want to spin around the shank. And I kind of just tease it around the shank till I feel like it's evenly dispersed around it. And then as I put tension on that thread, it's going to jump out a bit. And then I take my hair stacker, just the half of it, and I wiggle it in there, and I look it down the front there and make sure those are, as I'm pushing those tips back, I make sure they're evenly arranged around the shank of the hook. Slide those back tight, grab a hold of them with my offhand, tease them a little bit,
Nice trick.
and then pull my thread forward in front of that, and I build a thread dam in front of those hair fibers. This is where you spend a little bit of thread. You'll see I'll let go here, and these are going to be sticking out. I mean, that's not exactly as pretty as you'd want it, so you can continue to build that thread dam until that all those hairs start to relax backwards. And then once you feel like you've got a good thread dam, my last few wraps are actually going to be, I'm not going to tighten them down with as much tension, because as you tighten this deer hair down with a lot of tension, it causes them to splay back out. Okay, and now for the pom-poms. I already cut one.
You were getting ahead of yourself.
Yeah, I was just excited about the pom-poms. It's not every day a guy gets to eat pom-poms. So I've clipped 2 of those pieces off. I'm gonna take them and I'm just gonna trim them into a bait fish profile. And I tie these in after that first layer of deer hair, because that deer hair will help those to stand out, and they'll have more action in the water with that deer hair behind them. Give it a little bit more flash. And that mylar is actually quite slippery, so you might have to put another big thread dam in front of it before it captures them good. And then when you're fishing for pike, one of the go-to lures throughout history has always been the daredevil, and it's been red and white. I like red and white flies as well up in Saskatchewan. Again, just a small pinch there of deer hair. Again, 3 loose wraps, and then as I tighten it, I tease it around the shank. On this layer of hair is mostly just for a subtle little bit of red in there. You know what? I actually don't weight my flies. I either use a sinking line, mostly a sink tip, to get them to go down, and or I just pinch split shot on the front of it. I'd rather instead of tying a whole bunch of weighted flies and a whole bunch of unweighted flies, I'd rather be able to manipulate them out of the box with, and the same goes with poppers. I'll fish this fly as a popper as well by using an inch diameter piece of foam on my actual leader, and I can fish it as a popper. So. It's fun when they eat. Has anybody ever caught pike on a topwater pattern? How is it?
Oh, it's a kick. They really, really bang.
Yeah. I had one last August come about 2 feet out of the water with my fly in its mouth. I set the hook while it was in the air. My hook point never even touched him. It just came right back out of his mouth. But it was one of the coolest eats I've ever had. Yeah. Yeah.
I just come up and just sit, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like a midge.
It's just like little guinea pig. You just kiss it.
So 3 loose wraps there as I tighten it down. Actually, when I first started tying patterns like this, I used to use about 4-pound monofilament as my thread, because I'd break thread quite often before I kind of got that feel of how much tension to put on it.
Do you have a name for this?
My daughters think they look like flowers upside down. And so the scientific or Latin name for pike is Esox lucius. So, Lucius lily. Some people might read it luscious lily. So there's why my daughters think it looks like a flower. But it's got a lot of flash to it. Pike don't get selective as we know trout get selective. Pike select on vulnerability as opposed to pattern or color or shape. If it looks vulnerable to them, then they eat it. And the two things that advertise vulnerability the best is flash and erratic swim behavior. Somebody commented on my hook being bent, and that lends to that erratic swim behavior, and then also the size of the deer hair head.
What size rod?
Some people use 10s. I go down to a 7-weight. 50-inch fish last spring that we have it on video, and I think I played him for about 45 seconds before he was in the net. And as soon as he was in the net, and I let tension off him, the hook just popped out like a barbless, and it's not barbless. I don't fish barbless.
Did you say 45 seconds?
45 seconds.
Is that on your Facebook page?
You don't play
Yeah,
with
a while
fish, you
back.
play 'em low.
Yeah.
You break your rod.
They have two toothy plates on the roof of their mouth, and a lot of time the hook point won't penetrate all the way into the plate, but it will stick. They have conical teeth that are lined on that roof, and the hook point will stick there until it loses tension or changes angle. So basically, if you get it hook up in that site, you want to get it to the boat as quick as you can. At the same time as that, though, you risk, if you only have a tiny bit of tissue purchased with your hook, you risk ripping that tissue and losing him that way. So it's kind of it's a gamble either way you go. Let's see.
You use that arbor cable ones.
Do you know what, Bob? I actually have hard mono, saltwater mono that I use. I have wire that I use. And if I'm fishing in an area that I feel like I can catch a lifetime fish, like up at trout camp in Saskatchewan, I tie on the wire, you know. Unless I'm super shallow, fishing super shallow, and I'm dragging the bottom with that wire is the only time I'll switch out that. But if I can potentially hook into a 50-inch fish, I'm definitely fishing wire because I don't want him to cut me off. I might cry if he cut me off on a 50-inch fish. Super hair, kinky fiber, jungle hair. This one's actually not the kinky. This is a straight fiber, but most of it is sold in a kinky version like that, super hair. Double it over, and again, I don't match the tips for a little bit of a taper. So here's that parachute again. My reason for that is it holds my hackles and all that off my hook point from fouling. If you use a rabbit strip ever, this is something good to have underneath the rabbit strip to keep it from fouling around your hook point. Yeah, that's just flash a boob right there. I don't know who this one is actually. What's that, my? Oh no, that's the way it came. Yeah, I don't think it's whiting. I can't remember who it was though. A lot of my stuff is whiting, but I don't know who this is.
It's a lot easier to see.
Yeah. This is I fished with a guy out of Wisconsin one year, and up there in Wisconsin they have a Green Bay pattern. Green and yellow, and it's one of their go-tos. My father's a Packer fan. He's got one share. He's an owner. Springtime up there in Saskatchewan. This is so this fly is about standard. This fly is about standard size you could fish up there in Saskatchewan. Later in the fall they like bigger bugs. So but you can fish this same fly again, like I said, with that big popper plug on the front of it that gives the appearance of a much larger and moves a much larger amount of water. What's that? Yeah. pike bugs, when you go shopping for buckskin or bucktail, whoops, you're looking for really long fibers. I mean, that's a lot longer than you'd need for an elk or caddis or whatnot. So there's obviously, when you go to the fly shop to pick out your materials, you're going to be going through materials to make sure you've got the length that you need to tie a big long bug. Sometimes that thread will start to slide down off of your deer hair as you wrap up, and you just got to jump back down and build up a dam in front of it to keep it from sliding down. And if you don't strip them out, then you're going to have way too much bulk on your fly head. And again, as I creep up that hair, I'm just doing, my wraps are looser and looser so as to not cause that hair to flare out. Yeah, no, I've got a buddy who guides for muskie in Wisconsin, and it's one of his go-tos for muskie.
If I showed up with one of those, I would think I knew what I was doing. Until I cast.
All right, everybody, the fly tying is done.